All right, let's get right into it. We're going to look at the story of a single military regiment. But, this isn't just any old story. This is a narrative that's like a mirror, reflecting the epic and often turbulent history of an entire subcontinent, from the peak of the British Empire to the birth of a new nation. And that really brings us to the big question here, doesn't it? How does a regiment, forged in the fires of one empire, end up completely transformed, serving a brand new nation, and even finding itself fighting against the very people who were once its comrades? It's a wild journey of identity, loyalty, and unbelievable change. Okay, so before we go any further, there's one word you absolutely have to know to get this story: piffers. This was the nickname for the Punjab Frontier Force. Think of them as these legendary units the British raised way back in 1849 to guard the super volatile northwest frontier. These guys were hardened, they were respected, and our story, well, it starts with them. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. The 11th Cavalry didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was actually born from the union of two separate but equally famous piffer regiments, and each one had its own incredible history. So on one side, you had the 21st Cavalry, also known as Daly's Horse. They were raised in 1849 and really made their name during the Indian Mutiny of 1857, especially at the Siege of Delhi. And then on the other side, you have the 23rd Cavalry, also founded in 1849. They became legends for their role in Lord Roberts' famous epic march from Kabul to Kandahar. So you have these two parallel legacies of courage. For decades, these two regiments did their own thing, operating independently. But after the total chaos of the First World War, everything changed. The British Indian Army went through this massive restructuring, one so huge it forced these two distinct histories to merge into one. And what's really amazing here is just the sheer scale of this. After World War I, the British military basically slashed the number of cavalry regiments in its Indian Army from a whopping 39 all the way down to 21. A huge reduction. And instead of just disbanding units, they decided to amalgamate them, basically pairing them up. So the whole process was pretty straightforward. You have the 21st and 23rd Cavalry, both highly decorated Piper units, returning from the war. Then, in 1921, they're officially merged. And just like that, a new identity is born: the 11th Prince Albert Victor Zone Cavalry, or PIVO for short. And this new regiment, it was a true mix of its parents, you could say. Its badge proudly displayed the Kandahar Star. That's a direct nod to the 23rd Cavalry's famous march. And its makeup, well, it was a real mosaic of the region, with squadrons of Punjabi Muslims, Sikhs, and Dogras all serving together under one flag. And for about 20 years, that's how things were. But then World War II happened, followed immediately by the absolute earthquake that was the partition of India. This period wasn't just going to change the regiment, it would transform it completely and put its soldiers through trauma you just can't imagine. So when World War II kicks off, this regiment goes everywhere. In 1940, the horses are gone. They're now a mechanized unit with armored vehicles. From there, they're fighting across the deserts of North Africa, and then they're plunged into the brutal jungle warfare of Burma, where they really made a name for themselves at the critical Battle of Kohima. And even after the war, they kept serving, heading to Indonesia. They were a crucial fighting force for the British Empire. But after surviving a global war, you'd think the worst was over. It wasn't. The journey to what would become their new home was marked by a totally different kind of horror. As India was partitioned in 1947, the regiment traveled to the newly formed Pakistan. And along the way, they saw the unspeakable violence of partition firsthand, including awful events like the one recorded here in Amritsar. For soldiers just back from a world war, this was a deeply, deeply personal trauma. And yet, here's the thing. That same trauma of partition was also a moment of rebirth. The regiment had survived the end of an empire, and now it was about to become a cornerstone of a brand new nation's army. So this is the pivotal moment. With the division of the British Indian Army, the 11th Pavo Cavalry was officially assigned to Pakistan. The allegiance that had defined it for almost a century was about to change. Fundamentally. Irreversibly. And this next part really just shows you the speed and the tragedy of this whole thing. I mean, stop and think about this for a second. Less than 3 years, that's all. Less than 3 years before this, these men from different communities had fought side by side as brothers in the jungles of Burma against a common enemy. And now, in the conflict over Kashmir in 1948, the 11th Cavalry was in direct combat against regiments like the 7th Light Cavalry, units they had fought with. Former comrades were now adversaries, facing each other across a new border they never asked for. The final symbolic break with that imperial past came in 1956, when Pakistan officially became a republic. All the British royal titles were dropped from its military units. So the Prince Albert Victor's own cavalry was now simply the 11th Cavalry Frontier Force. So that begs the question, right? How does a regiment carry nearly a century of British imperial history, while at the same time forging a new identity as a fiercely proud Pakistani unit? Well, the answer is literally written on their badge and in their battle honors. And in its new life, man, the regiment did not waste any time making a name for itself. It actually holds the incredible distinction of being the only armored regiment in the entire Pakistan Army to earn battle honors for all three major wars fought with India. It cemented its legacy in the history of its new nation fast. And this is so cool. It shows exactly how a new identity is built. Just look at their modern badge. It's a masterclass in storytelling. They kept the Kandahar Star from the 23rd Cavalry and the crossed swords from the 21st, but, and this is key, the Christian-style swords were swapped out for Muslim ones. The old British battle honor was replaced by a Quranic verse. And right at the top, the Piffer Bugle, connecting them all the way back to their frontier origins. It's a selective history, right? Honoring parts of the past while asserting a powerful new identity. And that leaves us with this final thought. A regiment's badge tells the story it chooses to remember. But it also makes you wonder, what about the other stories? The names, the battles, the loyalties, the parts that are quietly left behind when an empire falls and a new nation is born.